Welcome back to more Club World Cup fantasy content. This will be my team selection for match day 6 as we approach the semi-final stage. We are almost at the end of this competition and you can see my mini league on screen. There is a league code in the description. The same goes for an auto join link. A big shout out to everyone in this league, including 12th place. Man United should be here. I'm not sure why you should name your team like that and kind of celebrate 12th place, but it is good in Club World Cup fantasy, maybe not so much in the Premier League. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and also that notification bell so you're always up to date with my content, whether that's UCL Fantasy, FPL, or the Club World Cup. And check all the other links in the description for my Patreon and the Championships, further links to my videos, amongst many other perks. The Discord server, the Club World Cup Fantasy League, and Spotify can also be found in the description. And leave a 5-star review if possible, just by watching or listening on your phone or tablet. But without further ado, let's jump straight into it. In fantasy formats such as the Club World Cup, we have such a quick turnaround, so you might be used to this from the World Cup and also the Euros. But in match day 5, it was a fairly decent week. Donnarumma got a clean sheet between the sticks, and I didn't take that -3 hit to get Robert Sanchez, who conceded against Palmeiras. So I made the right decision in this regard, but it didn't prevent me from taking a -9 hit overall. That also included some defender transfers, and one of them was Fran Garcia, who did the business. He scored against Borussia Dortmund, and that was a healthy return from him. But I'm seeing a lot of comments recently saying, why did he not get the clean sheet? Let's clarify a few things. So you need to play 60 plus minutes and keep the clean sheet, but it doesn't matter if Madrid had a clean sheet at 61 or 62 minutes. If they concede later on, then the clean sheet will be wiped out, and Fran Garcia played the full 90 minutes because it was Gonzalo Garcia, the striker, who was subbed off, and then Borussia Dortmund proceeded to score twice. So just be very careful about that, because you don't want to blame the game for something that it's actually not got anything wrong about. So be very careful. As for Svensson, he was disappointing. One of my substitutes there, and he got 0 points against Real Madrid, and he's now off back home on holiday for a little bit, and then joining Dortmund again for pre-season. But Hakimi didn't play particularly well against Bayern Munich, but he still got that assist towards the very end of the game when PSG were down to 9 men, and he set up Ousmane Dembele for the second goal, and PSG should be the favourites now to win this competition. But in the midfield, there were some good things about it, but also some very big disappointments. I captained Cole Palmer, but for some reason, he only got 8 points. He made 2 key passes, which in this game would mean an additional point for a midfielder, so he should have been on 9 points as his base score and 18 as my captain. So I'm not sure what happened there, but maybe that's something we need to talk about with FIFA. Otherwise, who cares? It's just a summer tournament anyway. Michael Olise also created 2 chances against PSG, but no additional point was added. And Jude Bellingham has been a massive disappointment in the knockout stages so far. And it has been Arda Güler who has been the standout Real Madrid midfielder, and he also saves you a lot of money in the process. So going in that direction would have been the best play for me, and then buying Mbappe or Gonzalo Garcia up front, and that was one of my mistakes for match day 5. Kvaratskhelia blanked once more, but Desiree Doué scored the opening goal against Bayern Munich, and I was very bullish in my match day 5 content about Doué scoring and doing really well against the Bavarians, and it was an evenly contested game, you could say, but PSG were the one that looked more threatening. They created big chances. Bayern Munich didn't create a single big opportunity against the Parisians, so ultimately I think it was the fair result, a 2-0 win there for PSG, despite the 2 red cards towards the end of the game. And Marcus Leonardo was my first captain. He got 7 points, but I switched it to Cole Palmer, and then I was very close to switching it once more to either Hakimi or Desiree Doué, and then if I wanted to be really aggressive, it would have been Vinicius Jr. as my final captain. So in the end, I got a captaincy haul, and that's the most important thing. After a disaster match day 1 where I captained Cambiasso and he got 0 points, ever since that it has been better for me, but there have been some missed opportunities along the way, and I think Di Maria back in match day 2 was one of the very biggest ones, but in that particular occasion, I've only got myself to blame because I actually didn't go on the game against Auckland City when Benfica played them, and you can't blame anyone else but yourself. On the bench though, I've got Sommer, Stanisic, Colwill, and also Germán Cano. I was a little bit unfortunate here in the case of Stanisic because he was subbed off so early, and then you saw Musiala's injury just before the first half ended, and I think that probably shook Bayern Munich a little bit, and they started the game relatively well, in my opinion. But with Jan Sommer, I haven't been able to change him, and if it wasn't for Levi Colwell's suspension now for the semi-finals, I would have had 5 free transfers and then get to a full 15-man squad. But in order to do that now, I need to take a -3 hit, which isn't the end of the world, and I'm open to doing so, even just to kind of modify things in my midfield and forward line and change the structure ever so slightly. But it is a bit of a kind of frustration there, because I think Levi Colwell would have been a good option for the semi-finals, and it also would have given me just the quantity in terms of numbers to really attack match day 6. Herman Cano was very poor against Al Hilal in my opinion, but he is a budget forward and he has qualified to the next round. But as you can see, Svensson, Elise, Marcus Leonardo, Sommer and Stanisic are all eliminated, and Levi Colwell is suspended. So that's 6 players to deal with. Not as bad as the last match day where I had up to 8 eliminated or suspended players. So there's still plenty to do there in that regard. And I may have set a personal record in terms of the smallest green arrow ever achieved. I've only gone up by 78 places, but I took a -9 hit, so I'm not going to complain too much. But not getting Mbappe instead of Vinicius Jr., also Arda Güler in the midfield, and just a few things here and there kind of cost me in the end from getting a bigger green arrow and entering the top 10k. But let's discuss some transfer plans to try to break into that threshold. That is going to be my aim by the end of this tournament. It won't be easy, but it's certainly still possible. So Levi Colwell, who is suspended, could make way for his teammate Marc Cucurella, who is now the best Chelsea defender in my opinion. But you might be tempted by those differential Chelsea assets in this position, like Badiashile, although he is doubtful, and I think we could see a centre-back partnership of Chalobah and Tosin Adarabioyo. I think that's pretty much where you want to invest in with Chelsea, and that's why I'm also looking to move on Stanisic to Tosin Adarabioyo, who has around 1% ownership at the time of this recording, and he only cost 4.9 million. He got a massive return back in match day 3 where he scored as well, so I'm hoping for more of the same here in this match day. I could also do something like this with Svensson making way for Samuel Javier, but he's also doubtful. He was subbed off due to an injury back in match day 5, so that's something to keep an eye on. And if you want a differential Fluminense defender, you could go for some of those replacements in the fullback areas. And remember that Freitas is suspended there for the Brazilian outfit, so Ignacio might be your safest bet. He's got really low ownership at 0.7% and he only costs 4.1 million. But I think Samuel Javier offers that attacking potential, and I think he's worth it, even though he doesn't qualify for the scouting bonus. And in the midfield, I'm looking to go for Pedro Neto once more. This was discussed in my previous team selection podcast, but then I had second thoughts about him. I thought he might not even feature for Chelsea again in this Club World Cup, but he did play against Palmeiras, and he travelled from Portugal all the way to the United States of America again. So I do think Pedro Neto is a good option for the semi-finals and beyond. He is probably my second favourite Chelsea midfielder, only behind Cole Palmer. But there's also Enzo Fernandez, who continues to play in an advanced role, even with Caicedo being suspended for the quarterfinals and Lavia's injury. So I think Chelsea are quite insistent on playing Enzo Fernandez in that attacking midfield role. But Pedro Neto has had an outstanding tournament, scoring multiple goals and being a constant threat for the opposition. So Michael Olise would make way, and it also saves me several millions in the process, 2.8 million in the bank to spend on other areas. But the final transfer that's highlighted here could be Marcus Leonardo to Kylian Mbappe. But in order to fund this, I need to make a downgrade in the midfield, and that means Jude Bellingham being sold and potentially as part of a -3 hit. But towards the end of this podcast, I'll also show you some alternative transfer plans, which means no hits taken, just using 5 free transfers and sticking to 14 available players in my 50-man squad. But first and foremost, let me discuss my provisional team selection with the starting 11 and the captaincy all discussed and highlighted in this segment. Donnarumma would be my solitary goalkeeper for the second week running, facing Real Madrid, and this could easily be the final on paper. The winner of this game would become the favourite to win the Club World Cup in my personal opinion, even though Chelsea are the current favourites according to the bookmakers and the odds because of their easier fixture in the semi-finals. Going into my defensive line, it looks slightly different. In fact, it's a complete overhaul to what you would have seen in my previous team selections. So a Fluminense defender like Samuel Javier or Ignacio is on the cards, but I'm focusing more on Chelsea, and ideally I double or triple up on their defensive line with Tosin Adarabioyo, Cucurella, and possibly Robert Sanchez as another goalkeeper if I decide to go in that sort of avenue and keep Jude Bellingham in the process. Going into the midfield though, it looks a little bit more balanced because every single team is covered. Desiree Doué and Kvaratskhelia form part of a PSG midfield double-up. The same goes for Pedro Neto and Cole Palmer for the Blues in Chelsea, and Arias could take Jude Bellingham's place there and save me millions in the process, which gives me the money to then buy Kylian Mbappe up front because I've also got Vinicius Jr. in my ranks, and that's something that most Club World Cup fantasy managers won't have, both Mbappe and Vinicius Jr. simultaneously. Hermangano also completes that starting 11 with a bench of Sommer, Hakimi, also Garcia, and Vinicius Jr. So actually I would have no Real Madrid midfielder, which does seem very surprising, and in an ideal world I would go for Arda Güler, but with this 15-man squad I would have 0.0 million in the bank. Otherwise, instead of Arias, I would target Arda Güler instead of him. So that is my current plans at the moment, and there would be one doubtful player in Samuel Javier, and there are plenty of suspensions to talk about, like Liam Delap for Chelsea, so Joao Pedro should start there for the Blues, and you've also got Nicholas Jackson who can start in that same position, and they could rotate between them. But if you are looking for a differential forward, apart from Hermangano, I think Joao Pedro could be a nice option for Matchday 6 at least, and you've got plenty of suspensions flying around, like Levi Colwill, who I highlighted earlier. Freites from Fluminense, the Argentine, is out of the semi-finals, and you've also got a few other issues here and there. They will all be highlighted in my deadline stream, so you're up to date with the team news, injury updates, and suspensions for the semi-finals and beyond. But after this match day, I mean, basically the slate is wiped clean. It was only those that picked up 2 yellow cards before the semi-finals, and that's identical to what we see in UCL Fantasy and the Champions League. But my first captain will be Cole Palmer. I'm backing Chelsea to win this game, and I think Palmer has the highest ceiling, but Pedro Neto's had the best tournament, in my opinion, of any Chelsea attacker, and Joao Pedro, if you do decide to go that sort of avenue, could be worth the punt, even as a captain. Then you can switch it to a Real Madrid or PSG player, and that's where things get very difficult for me. I said in my best wildcard team video that either Mbappe or Dembele would be my favourite captaincy options there from that particular matchup. But you have a plethora of options with Vinicius Jr., Gonzalo Garcia, Bellingham, Kvaratskhelia, Desiree Doué, and Hakimi has been outstanding in this tournament. But I think Mbappe or Dembele would be the way to go, even though they haven't started any games so far in this tournament. I think Matchday 6 could be the first time we see Dembele and Mbappe in that starting 11. So my current plan is to captain Palmer first, and then either Desiree Doué or Mbappe in my case, and Dembele would be a great purchase, I think, for wildcarders or those in a stronger position to buy that sort of premium midfielder. If I didn't have so many eliminated and suspended players, I could start modifying a few things like Kvaratskhelia to Dembele instead, but I'm not in that sort of position. It's still not too shabby because I can get to 14 players with just 5 free transfers, and to get to a full 50-man squad, it only takes a -3 hit. But is it worth changing my second goalkeeper for a hit? I'm not necessarily sure about that, even though Chelsea would be top of the clean sheet odds for Matchday 6. Stay tuned for the deadline stream tomorrow, where I'll highlight the Club World Cup fantasy odds for clean sheets and goal scoring, but I've got the ownership figures for every single position. I'll be honest though, in terms of differentials and stuff, which I've done in previous team selection podcasts, it's not worth delving into those kind of top players at 5% ownership or below, because everyone is basically eliminated in those sort of sections. So I'm going to focus on the highest owned players in every single position, the template pick, so to speak. Donnarumma is by far the highest owned goalkeeper, with 37.4% of managers selecting him in their 50-man squads. Courtois is second, with almost a quarter of all managers owning him. You've also got Robert Sanchez in third, with 13.3% ownership, and Fabio is last with 10.3%. The others can be ignored because they are eliminated from the competition. In the defensive line, Hakimi has 67.2% ownership. It only goes up and up, and if they go through to the final, we could see Hakimi get to 75% ownership overall. Nuno Mendes is second with 40.8%. Trent is third, and he's probably the best Real Madrid defender in isolation, but Fran Garcia offers outstanding value, and those two are the best options by far in that Real Madrid defense. Cucurella is fourth, then you've got Fran Garcia in sixth, and then other options like Reece James. People kept asking me, why are you not going for Reece James, and why are you not recommending him over Cucurella and Colwill, for example? But we saw him pulled out of that lineup against Palmeiras, and he's just too injury prone in my opinion, and that's why his minutes are always managed, and it makes him an unreliable Club World Cup fantasy option, unfortunately, but the potential is certainly there. Freitas, who is suspended, has 11.3% ownership. You've also got Dean Howson, who is also suspended for the semi-finals. He has 9.5% ownership, and Samuel Javier is doubtful, but he has gone over that 5% threshold. A lot of people like what they saw in the quarterfinals with that assist, but he might not even start against Chelsea in matchday 6. Going into the midfield, Kvaratskhelia is the highest owned option with 41.2%. Pedro Neto is third with 28%, and his teammate Cole Palmer is only narrowly behind. Vitinha, Doué, Jude Bellingham, Ousmane Dembele, Enzo Fernandez, Valverde, Arda Güler would be next in line, and John Arias is close to 10% ownership, so that could also happen before the deadline. But I think most of us will be prioritising Chelsea in terms of our transfers, and maybe the likes of Arda Güler at a similar price tag. And the final kind of section here is with the forwards, and Mbappe has gone back to top with 39% ownership. Gonzalo Garcia is third with a quarter of all managers owning him. Vinicius Jr. is fourth in this list, and he has been a massive disappointment as well. Only returns in one game, which came in matchday 3 against Red Bull Salzburg. You've also got Erling Haaland. Oh wait, he's already gone. Forget about him. You've got Liam Delap, who is suspended, so I would be getting rid of him if possible. And Germán Cano has also gone above 5% ownership to 6.4% overall. So I think João Pedro would be a great transfer if you are targeting scouting bonus, which becomes increasingly more difficult to find at this stage of the competition. And as I always do, I'd recommend basing your picks on your predictions. So you might back Chelsea to keep a clean sheet, so you'd want to go for 2 or 3 Chelsea defenders, maybe even Robert Sanchez in goal, and you could do a quadruple up, which is very risky, and the same applies to any other team. You could back Fluminense to do the unthinkable, and in that sort of scenario, you might want to go for Samuel Javier if he's fit, then go for Ignacio, and then Fabio in goal. There are many different ways to approach the semi-final stage, even though we only have 4 teams left in this competition. So I think that's the biggest way to differentiate yourself from the rest of the crowd, and you're not going to do that by owning these players that you see on screen, like Hakimi, who has by far the highest ownership at 67.2%. Kvaratskhelia, of course, is the closest, but there is still a massive gap there between the two. A lot of PSG and Chelsea players on this list, and only the likes of Trent and Mbappe from Real Madrid, and no Fluminense player will really get close to these ownership figures. So maybe that's your way of being a little bit different too, but you don't want to force the issue and go differential for the sake of it, especially if you think that Fluminense will lose and you're not backing any of their assets to do well, but you just go for them for the sake of it. Then you're relying on a lot of luck to kind of bail you out in the process. But let me now discuss the fixtures once more and highlight suspensions and doubts from every single team going into match day 6 and beyond. It's worth noting once more that yellow cards are wiped out after the quarterfinals, but if someone picked up their second booking during match day 5, they will be suspended for match day 6. And amongst the 4 semi-finalists, the following players are suspended: Liam Delap and Levi Colwill for Chelsea, and for Fluminense you've got Freitas and Martinelli. For PSG, Pacho and Lucas Hernandez picked up red cards, and the same goes for Dean Howson at Real Madrid. Those players will be unavailable for match day 6. Reece James is doubtful, and the same goes for Samuel Javier from Fluminense. And if there are any other injury updates and team news, they will be covered in the deadline stream tomorrow. And of course, this is the route to the final. We're now at the semi-final stage, so it's very simple. The winner of Chelsea versus Fluminense will face the winner of Paris Saint-Germain against Real Madrid, and you can also witness the entire knockout stages in this bracket. We've had some great games so far in this tournament, and I think that PSG Real Madrid one will be massive, and it could determine the overall winner of this competition. As always, let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Do you prefer this route, taking no hits whatsoever, using 5 free transfers and buying Robert Sanchez to displace Jan Sommer, whilst keeping Levi Colwill and then buying Ignacio? I could even go for Adarabioyo and just go all in on Chelsea there, but in this sort of scenario, I could go for João Pedro up front, and by doing so, it means having the maximum Chelsea players available. You can only pick 6 from the same club at the semi-final stage. This threshold increases to 8 for match day 7, but having João Pedro, Palmer and Pedro Neto means a triple up in Chelsea offensively. And even though Colwill is suspended, I would still have him in this 15-man squad alongside Cucurella and Robert Sanchez. So in order to get Tosin Adarabioyo, I would have to displace Levi Colwill in the process. And that's something else I could also weigh up. So maybe instead of going for Ignacio, I could go for something like this, have Tosin Adarabioyo, and also keep Svensson overall. So I'm just going to do this really quickly, restore Svensson, and then buy Tosin Adarabioyo. And in terms of money in the bank, I would have 0.4 million. So I could also make something like that work as well. In the midfield, I'd keep Jude Bellingham. It means no Kylian Mbappe or Ousmane Dembele, but apart from that, the midfield still looks really strong on paper, and you could arguably say it's stronger than what I discussed earlier, where instead of Bellingham, I had Arias, and for Matchday 6, I would back Jude Bellingham a little bit more, but maybe that ages horribly, like a lot of predictions that are given out on YouTube. But Joao Pedro, I think, is a nice differential, and having him and Cano is going to be something a little bit, I'd say, unique in terms of the semi-finals, and not that many people will go for that sort of approach. Maybe because they're going to go for the best assets in Mbappe and Gonzalo Garcia. There's no one from PSG really that I back. I think Gonzalo Ramos off the bench could always score a goal, but he's not someone you really back in a fantasy game like the Champions League or the Club World Cup. And Vinicius has been a massive disappointment in this tournament. It's about time he steps up with the goal contributions, but I'm quite set on the structure. I want to go all in on Chelsea with 5 to 6 players, and then from Real Madrid and PSG, I'd like to balance things out a little bit more because that game is tougher to predict on paper, and they've also got so many great options in every single position that it's worth going for Real Madrid and PSG assets simultaneously, even though you will have clashes and maybe lose out on some points in the process. But in terms of the all-out approach, that's where Chelsea comes into play, but it would mean only one Fluminense player in my 15-man squad. I'm actually not that bothered about having 11 players for the Club World Cup final because we get up to 6 free transfers for Matchday 7, so that is still quite attainable, and you don't need anyone on the bench, and ultimately Matchday 7 is its own entity because you can't change the captaincy or make substitutions. We are approaching the end of this competition. Matchday 6 marks the semi-final stage of the Club World Cup, and I will be going live once more on Tuesday the 8th of July, around 2 hours before the deadline. The plan is also to do the same for the Club World Cup final in just under a week's time. Thank you very much for watching this video and listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed it or found it insightful, then like this video, subscribe to my channel, and also the notification bell so you're always up to date with my Club World Cup fantasy, UCL fantasy, and FPL content. Follow me on X, Instagram, and Blue Sky, DylanRCM, and check all the links in the description for my Patreon and the championships, further links to my videos, amongst many other perks. The Discord server, Club World Cup Fantasy League, and Spotify can also be found in the description. I'll see you tomorrow for the next deadline stream, and keep your eyes peeled for FPL content.